Welcome to our fourth episode. Can you believe it? Our fourth episode, Sal.
Time is flying.
Uncorked. This podcast, it's all about cheese. It's easy being cheesy. Or isn't it easy being cheesy? I don't know.
At Carfagna's, absolutely. We have some very, very exciting stuff that we're going to be talking about. Here to my left, joining us for her first time on the Carfagna's Uncorked podcast is Michelle Vieira. Michelle, say hi.
Hi. First time on a podcast. I've done quite a few different medias, but haven't done podcasts before.
Wow. Well, Michelle, we're super excited to have you. We're going to get into what you do. Cool. Of course, if you're listening for the first time and maybe missed our first three episodes, we are based here at Carfagna's off Gemini, right here in Columbus on the north side of town. Carfagna's has they have such an amazing history here in Columbus since 1937. They've been around a long time, and I love hearing about the family business. I love hearing about the stories, and Sal brings in guests every single week. Sal, of course, is Sal Carfagna, part of the family here. So this week is you're gearing up for something that, first of all, I want to know if you have this trademarked. Is Parmageddon trademarked? Because you really should try and trademark this, guys.
You just put it out on the air there. We're working on it, Boxer. So yeah, definitely working on it. And I'm not sure if anybody actually has anything else Parmageddon. This is actually going to be our third year. So this is Parmageddon 3.0.
Ah.
And Parmageddon is near and dear to our hearts because it sparked a plethora of these store-wide events that we do. Parmageddon was the first one, and it launched just absolutely so well that we decided we're going to do something like this once a month. And, you know, they can be anything. We had an opening day event to celebrate the start of baseball. We'll do Christmas at Carfagna's. We do a holiday preview show in November. October is like Italian Heritage Month, so we'll do Italian Heritage Day. And Parmageddon is always around this time of the year. So we've had it in June, the first year, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Last year we had it
late April,
like early May.
Yeah.
But it always really coincides when we can get these super unique wheels of Parmigiano Reggiano. And this year just so happens we're going to do it here in June. Again, we like this month. And I'll allow Michelle to explain a little bit more about Parmageddon.
Yeah.
How we thought of it. You know, she had this idea, you know, of, hey, I don't know if anybody else really brings in like whole wheels at a time. Not a lot of people do in Central Ohio, at least. But let's do something cool with it.
Well, that's what I'm excited about, too, is Michelle, you're a guest this week that created Parmageddon. You created this whole thing.
Yeah.
Your background here, you had a couple of different departments at Carfagna's, right?
Yeah, so my official title is I'm the Cheese and Deli director. I am what's called a certified cheese professional, which means that basically I took and I passed the test through the American Cheese Society.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I've been in cheese for 10 years this year, and I've been with Carfagna's for just over about 3.5.
Is it when people ask what you do, is that what you say? Oh, I'm in cheese. I'm in the cheese industry.
I mean, usually what I'll say is I'm a cheesemonger, because that's like... That's what I do. That's my wheelhouse, as they say.
That's great.
I like to brag about Michelle. I call her our cheese sommelier. All right.
Oh,
for those of
that's
you
way fancy, Sal.
Who listened to our first podcast, we talked about sommeliers, right?
Yeah.
How we have them in our wine department, and she takes that sales approach, where in our wine department, Raj Hora and his team will dissect people's palates. Oh, you like these type of wines? Have you ever had this one? Have you ever had this grape? Have you tried that grape from this part of the world? And it's just it's an amazing sales approach to where you're expanding people's knowledge and you're expanding people's palates about these wonderful foods. And she takes that approach with the cheese.
Yep.
Oh, you like cheddars? Well, have you had this cheddar?
Amazing.
Have you had
Okay.
Yeah.
that? Parmesan. Oh, you like that? Have you had this? Have you had that? Do you know that pecorino is sheep's milk? And
Yeah.
Michelle does a fantastic job with
Thank
that.
you.
I had no idea. Well, let's go right to it with Parmageddon.
Yeah.
I think that we should do something first.
Oh, okay. Okay, what's that? Oh, yeah, we have to uncork. I almost forgot about the uncorked, the celebratory, what we do every single time.
So
Beautiful. And you did that right in the mic. We could hear that. Yeah.
Perfect pop.
Great save, Sal. Great save.
no problem. So we got a couple fantastic wines today. The first one is an Albana from Romagna. So both of these are from Emilia Romagna. So this is the wines that are from where Parmigiano Reggiano is made. And
wow.
we have a wonderful charcuterie board here that's going to pair with this. All of these items, all of these foods that we are going to be tasting today come from that same region. So what else comes from that region? What else is in there? Well, you have Modena, where the balsamic was originally made, and that's where it's known to be from. Parmesan cheese, right? Parmigiano Reggiano.
Sitting right next to us, yeah.
Bologna is in that region as well, where mortadella was famously made. Mortadella, if those of you who don't know it, is the original bologna, right? And in the Italians, they'll put the hunks of fat in there, they'll put peppercorns in there, and they'll put whole pistachios. So when you slice it, you have this beautiful mosaic of meat. It's not just like a pasty pink color that our American bologna is.
Yeah.
Which Bologna, Italy, if you look at how it's spelled, is Bologna, Bolgna.
I've never noticed that before.
And that's where mortadella was made, and that's where we got our bologna name from, and this meat is where that came from as well. Parma, Italy is in there as well, so we have some prosciutto di Parma, and that region is known for some salamis and truffles as well, and we have some wonderful salami al tartufo, so we have some truffle salami as well.
Yeah, and if you are just listening on the podcast, the audio version, just know that you can also subscribe to Carfagna's on YouTube, and you'll be able to get the visual of what's in front of us. We're going to learn more, of course, too, about how to crack a wheel. I never knew that there was such a thing that you could do, but we're going to learn all about that. Learn the behind the scenes of just how this all started. Thank you, Sal. How this all started with Michelle, too, and Parmageddon. We're going to get to that in just a sec. Do we do a cheers now or cheers later, or what? Sal, I always forget.
Let's
When's
cheers
what's
now.
appropriate? Okay.
We'll talk about this wine real quick. I got some notes on this. I've never had this wine before. This again, Albana. Okay, so it's from Romagna. We talked about that. The city. This is outside of Bologna, Italy. Imola is where it's from. Montecatone is actually the hill that it's made from. The Cru and Vineyard Selection, Montecino Rosso. It talks about the soils that are in here, the clays, gray brick, red opaque, sands. Albana of Romagna, again, is the grape. Average age of the vines, 15 years. Okay, this is harvested in September. It is 100% of that grape. Fermented in stainless steel. The temperature of fermentation, 18 degrees Celsius. Dry white wine. Okay, 2 months minimum before it's released to the market. That's it that I have on this wine. I don't really have a lot of other tasting notes on here. So it does lie in French barrels for a small part of the mass. So let's give it a swirl. Let's give it a taste.
Sal, that's really
blindly.
helpful. And I learned my lesson from last time not to drill you too much with the wine.
Why?
Remember what was it, the second or third episode I was asking you about the soil and limestone in northern Ohio, some of the islands there. Boy, this smells great.
Too much?
Oh, yeah. Should we take a little drink?
take a sip,
Cheers.
yeah.
Cheers, Sal. Cheers, Michelle.
cheers.
Get some white pear smell on that nose, white pear,
This is great.
white grape.
Is it wrong that I feel like this cheese wheel over here, this Parmesan, is looking at me like,
Oh yeah,
come get me.
Pretty
Come get
similar
me.
color.
it's saying
Yeah.
yeah, no, right. These wines, especially though, they are known to be paired with this cheese, which is fantastic.
I can see that. I can definitely see that with this wine. And the wine, one more time, for those that are cheese lovers that would love to pair with this and get a bottle here.
Albana, Romagna.
Albano.
Albana, Albana.
That's pretty easy to remember. Okay.
Super light, man.
Yes.
Very minerally,
Yeah.
nice and crisp. I mean, this will just go down super easy on a nice hot day. On the patio, you got this same charcuterie board. You're sitting there. This bad boy sitting in a bucket of ice right next to you. It doesn't stand a chance.
No, and I was going to say, Sal, you could do Albana just on. You don't have to pair it with anything. You could just drink it, like you said, on the patio
It's super
after
refreshing.
work. It's light and it tastes great.
Refreshing too, right?
Yes.
That minerality, like when you're drinking like a San Pellegrino and you got like that little spritz, this isn't like, obviously it's not naturally carbonated like a mineral water, but that back end, that minerality, that nice little pop, right? You get that kind of like that. It's on the back of your tongue a little bit. I love it, man.
It tastes great.
Super refreshing.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
talk about
I feel like, let me just take one more drink of this because it tastes like summer. If you were to describe summer with a taste of wine, this is what it would
very
be,
sunshine.
I think. This is summer.
there's a wine that I've been drinking that I've just like become addicted to. It's called Albarino, which is from Spain.
Okay.
The Rio Baja region. This reminds me of it, that super light, refreshing, crisp, a lot of minerality on it. Not a lot of overlying flavors that are, a lot of complexity, right?
Yeah.
It's like a pure, like delicate white wine, white grape, maybe like a pear, not even like an apple, right? It's more like a pear kind of flavor. I love it. Great stuff, man.
Sal, before we get to Michelle, because I want to get to Parmageddon, how it started, a little more about Michelle on this Uncorked episode. Quick question about wine that I'm pretty sure you can answer this one. Is wine, okay, you've got wine in Spain, you have wine in Italy, wine on the West Coast, wine on the islands in the Lake Erie off of Ohio. But
We talked about that last week.
Is wine, limestone. And then I really started getting
stuck.
into the soil.
It's stuck.
And Sal's like, look, I'm not getting that far into the weeds with soil here. but is it, when you go to a different country, are you getting a different style of wine? Is it that like, does every country have their own style, their own taste of wine? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Short answers, yeah.
Okay.
Let's talk about like Cabernet Sauvignon. That grape is made all over the world. A word that we plugged a few episodes back was, it was called terroir. Terroir is the French term for earth. Terroir also is the term that's used that the French really kind of stamped on wine. This wine's terroir, right? So Cabernet Sauvignon in this part of France tastes different than the Cabernet Sauvignon in Tuscany, Italy, versus the Cabernet Sauvignon in Napa Valley.
Yeah.
Versus the Cabernet Sauvignon in wherever else in the world that it's grown. That terroir, right? The way that the soils, they pick up there's different minerals in the soil, so there's different composition. And all of those unique, I guess, layers, right? All those different minerals and everything else is what the vines are eating, and that's what's growing these grapes. So absolutely, that grape brings on that characteristics of that terroir, that side of the hill. It's so unique even that, like, when you talk about Barolo wines, and if you look at a map of Barolo and all of the different vineyards in Barolo and all the different sub properties within Barolo, it looks like a puzzle piece.
Yeah.
And it's almost confusing when you look at it. You're like, no, this is just all Barolo, right? Yes, but literally every single part of this map of this area in Italy makes a different style wine, all the same wine, but a different style of that wine. and they taste different too. And it's like, this is just across the street, right? Yeah, it's across the street, but it's the elevation has changed, and the hillside sits, is a little bit facing this side of the sun, and so the sunlight impacts it, and the elevation impacts it. Everything. It's unbelievable when you get down to it, and you are like the science behind it.
Yeah.
I wish that we could have somebody that comes in that actually that talks about it a little bit more in depth than I do.
Oh, we will. We'll get someone in.
And the science behind it.
Yeah.
If we got a guest listening to this, if we got a guest,
please
DM us.
DM us, reach out to us. Absolutely. This is episode 4 of Uncorked. We are at the Carfagna's headquarters off Gemini in Columbus. Sal Carfagna's with us. Michelle, who heads the deli and the cheese departments, is going to talk a little bit more about something happening very soon, Father's Day weekend, and that is Parmageddon.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about where you got this idea, first of all, for Parmageddon.
Yeah, so, before I worked here, I worked at Whole Foods for a very long time. And we did something similar, but it was not quite to the degree that I thought it should be. And I don't think they even do this even anymore since COVID, but basically, the roots of the idea is like, it's Parm's on sale for a weekend, crack it in front of people, and that's about all that it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought, I'd really love to just take a weekend just to celebrate one cheese. And Parmigiano Reggiano is such a cool cheese to me because, when you ask a cheesemonger what's your favorite cheese, I like to use the analogy of it's like choosing a favorite child. It changes all the time. But for Parmigiano Reggiano, what I love about it is this one is always consistently always in my top 5. Right now it's my number 1 because Parmageddon's coming up and this is a really special wheel, and I am currently very excited about it. And so what's cool about Parmigiano Reggiano is, too, that I love about it is that it's a deeply underrated cheese. A lot of people just think about it as dust for your pasta. And in an Italian market, I really wanted to, when I came on here, I was like, I really want to build this cheese program to be something here. People come for the meat, people come for the wine. I really wanted cheese to be a reason for someone to come.
Sure.
So Parmageddon was something I floated to Sal our first Christmas here. It was probably December 23rd. Sal and his family was sitting in the piazza having dinner, and I was like, hey, so I have this idea. I want to float it by you. How do you feel about doing a large event here? Because we hadn't done one yet. We just opened, and, I was like, I have this idea of doing a punk rock show that's Parmigiano Reggiano focused, and really celebrate one cheese. And so when we were kind of breaking into, okay, that's a great idea, let's break into the nitty gritties of what that means. We really wanted to kind of have it be a kind of educational event where, this is a time that you get to try Parmigiano Reggiano. You get to try the special one that I get in for the event. And what's cool about it, too, is it's a time for me to really bring in something that is harder to find in Central Ohio. It's, something that, I would have only dreamed of carrying in a big box store, right? So, and Parmigiano Reggiano, when you were talking about terroir and stuff, it totally applies to cheese as well. So, the cows are grazing on different grasses at different elevations. And so there's different...
and you will taste that when we taste these cheeses.
And there's differences, too, between, breeds and then different times of the year. Especially with, grass-grazed cheese, such as Parmigiano Reggiano, you get... It's such a tight... What I love about it is it's such a tightly regulated cheese that you consistently get a spectacular wheel every time. But then there's certain wheels that just, are just magic. And... with Parmageddon, that's kind of my ultimate goal is trying to find that really magical wheel to share with people,
and
get people as excited about it as I am.
And does Parmesan, a dumb question, but just out of curiosity,
No dumb questions.
because I'm thinking the visual here.
Yeah.
Does Parmesan always come, or is it always placed on a wheel first? Is that how it arrives to you?
Yeah. So,
Well, yes and no. So
Oh.
they sell them by the wheel,
Okay.
by the half wheel, by the
quarters.
quarter wheel.
Oh.
So
okay.
normally, the most economical thing to do is to buy it by the quarter wheel. It's already wedged out. It's easy to break down and all of that.
yeah.
The whole wheel especially is a lot more difficult to handle. Number one, it's a lot more expensive.
It's very heavy. It's
It's-
80 pounds.
I was just
plus.
going to ask, how heavy is the wheel?
So they're
okay.
between 80 and 90 pounds.
Okay.
And usually, like most of the year, save for Parmageddon and Christmas, I'll get a quarter wheel at a time. It's a lot more economical, and plus I can get a fresher piece, right? I can break down that quarter, and what is out there is the freshest piece. It comes in cryovac, so it's locking in that flavor rather than wrapping it in plastic, which is good for short term, but for super long term, it can mess with the flavors just because it's been sitting in the fridge for a while.
yeah. Michelle, where are the wheels coming from?
So these guys, they're from Italy. So
Oh, wow.
So I think one way we can start is kind of talking about the differences between Parmesan versus Parmigiano Reggiano.
Yeah,
Because I think
yeah.
a lot of people kind of conflate the two to be the same, and they're not. So Parmesan is basically it's an Anglicization of the word Parmigiano, which is what the Italians say. Italians will say.
Okay. What am I tasting here?
Okay, so this side is the 24-month Parmigiano Reggiano.
Take my finger? Is that
Feel free to grab. Yeah,
Okay.
I got them in flakes. So this is part of this half of this wheel right here that we're going to do the cacio e pepe. This is a 24+ month wheel, so it was made in November of 2021. So it's a little bit older than I usually get.
I'm having another and another.
Yeah, this is why I did a lot of it. So
Thank you.
Yeah. So, what's great about this guy? So, Parmigiano Reggiano is at the very minimum to be called Parmigiano Reggiano is at least 12 months old. To be exported, like kind of at like quote unquote export quality, it has to be at least 18 months old.
Oh.
Usually, what we get is about 24 months old, give or take. Both of these are well beyond that. This is about 2.5 years old that we're trying here. This other one that we have was made in September of 2020, so it's over 3.5 years old. So these are some pretty nice, like aged wheels.
Michelle, you said something about to be export quality, it has to be 18 months. Why is that?
So to reach its kind of organoleptic like qualities of being allowed to be called Parmigiano Reggiano. So the consortium is an arm of the Italian government. They are basically a group that certifies Parmigiano Reggiano. They promote it, they market it. That's their whole thing, is this one cheese, and they're very like top level experts in the Italian government, and they're very, very strict.
Is this
It's
the same
it's
department you've
amazing.
talked about
This
before?
This is like, in the United States, we have the CIA, the
Right.
Department of Homeland Security. In Italy, they have
CIA, but just for Parmigiano Reggiano.
it's a governing body. It's a consortium for literally just that cheese that you're looking at.
Is it similar to like the Food and Drug Administration or the
But for one product.
For one product.
For one product.
Oh, for
Boxer.
one product.
This is
Oh.
Just
what's
for
amazing
Parmigiano
about
Reggiano.
this. Okay, so let's go into this region, right? Let's dive into that. This is where Michelle's going with this. Every farmer that's making this style cheese in there makes it that size and everything. This governing body goes around to all the farms in that region because it has to be from that region,
Yeah.
right? If it's not, you can have like Grana Padano, right, which is a Parm style cheese that's not from that region.
Well, it is, but it's not quite as tightly regulated. It's slightly different. It's
This is why we have her here.
Similar, but slightly different. It's kind of like all rectangles are square. So, Parmesan versus Parmigiano Reggiano. Before I kind of get the cart
Sure,
away from the horse.
sure.
So, Parmesan is a kind of a generic term. It's called like a common name for like a family of cheeses. that just basically means a hard cheese. Parmigiano Reggiano is a very specific cheese. All Parmigiano Reggiano is Parmesan, but not all Parmesan is Parmigiano Reggiano. So Parmesan can be from anywhere. We have Parmesan made in the United States. We have Parmesan made in, I have one from Argentina called Reggianito. That's Italians that came to Argentina and they missed the flavors at home, so they made their own version.
No kidding.
But it can't be called Parmigiano Reggiano because that is illegal. They will get sued. So
they'll get sued by the folks in Italy.
They will get sued by the Italian government.
Oh, okay.
By the consortium. Okay. So,
or worse.
Or worse. They will force you under. So
don't mess with the Italians.
Don't mess with the Italians. So Parmigiano Reggiano has a very specific, it's a very specific size. They're about 80 to 90 pounds. They're kind of wider than they are tall. They're convex on the edges. And then it has a very specific look. It's kind of, I like to kind of think of it as like a tattooed bad boy. Every single mark on the rind of this cheese has meaning.
It is, Boxer. Every single stamp on there means something.
So I can go over those with you if you'd like. So
yeah, and if you're listening, I'm looking at the wheel, and you're right. There is verbiage all around the entire body. Yeah.
So kind of the original one. So as the cheese is made, the cheese is placed into a like hoop, and it has pinpricks that are kind of pressed into it. So as the cheese is formed, these pinpricks are pressed into it. So on the edges, it says Parmigiano Reggiano. That is created while it's made. And then it will have the month and the year that it's made as well. So in the instance of this brown cow Parmigiano Reggiano, it says set 20. Mm-hmm. It's set tetra September 2020. Yeah, thank you. And then it will also have the number of the dairy as well. So every single dairy of Parmigiano Reggiano has a numerical code that can be traced back to that dairy on the farm. Yeah.
Okay.
So even like on Parmigiano Reggiano's website, you can trace that numerical code back to that dairy. So this one in particular.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So this one in particular is Società Agricola di Piscina, which is out of Parma, 2361. So this one the Sal is pointing to, that is later added. That is a fire brand that is added by the consortio. So they do an initial check, right, to be able to be called Parmigiano Reggiano. They go through a very rigorous check from the make to the feed to how it's aged. When it passes, it gets this fire brand that says Parmigiano Reggiano, and that's when it can legally be called Parmigiano Reggiano. And that's at 12 months old. So
that's the official stamp.
That's the official stamp.
That's the stamp of approval right there.
If it doesn't get that, what they do
Gets
is
scraped.
they scrape it.
Yeah.
So go.
No, it's fine. So when it doesn't pass, what the consortium will do, they will basically strip all of those marks off of the wheel, and it will be decommissioned. And that will, depending on the quality of it, like there's different levels of it, right? So like kind of like downgraded, not certified Parmigiano Reggiano.
Yeah.
It'll have kind of like horizontal marks through the sides of it. It'll be a significantly less expensive wheel for a restaurant that wants to use a grating cheese. Or if it doesn't pass at all, it will be totally scraped off. And then for this one in particular that I got in, it's called Solo di Bruna Parmigiano Reggiano, which is one of the 3 original breeds to make Parmigiano Reggiano. This one has a very unique set of marks as well on the top of the wheel. So along the sides, it has the little markings of the cow. My little like handmade signs on the sides of this.
Really unique.
Is kind of alluding to that. I also have that little like kind of pizza box stamp thing that says De Solo di Bruna. And then what's also unique about it too is it has that pattern that says like Solo di Bruna, and then it actually says the name of the creamery as well. So it says Piscina, Caseificio Piscina, on there on top. In that pattern. So
That Michelle.
It's pretty sweaty and it's down, so you might have trouble flipping it. But
Michelle, all the designs on there looks like it took an incredible amount of time.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Another kind of unique thing too that it has, markings wise. So every wheel on the bottom of it, I have it on the top right now. It has a little QR code casing plate on the top. That's also added when the cheese is made.
No kidding.
So that QR code, you can scan that on the Parmigiano Reggiano site, and again, it will link to that dairy, to that day that it was made.
I'm going to try that.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but that is the idea of it. It's a little sweaty. But yeah, it links up to the Parmigiano Reggiano site, and it links back to. It might be too sweaty.
Sure.
But
that's so cool. A QR code on a wheel of cheese.
So if you've heard of like microchips in cheese, that's what they're talking about. It's not a true microchip. It's a casing plate, so it's just like a little like clear plate that's added. But yeah. Sometimes I have luck, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I have luck, sometimes I don't. Yeah, and like
that's pretty amazing. A QR code on cheese.
Yeah, and then also like if you're on the site, it will have like a feature that says like search dairy. If you enter 2361, it will loop you back to that dairy as well. So Parmigiano Reggiano is like one of the most traceable cheeses in the world. Like it is like from a glance, like not even really working that hard, is super traceable. So Parmesan is kind of an Anglicization, kind of a bastardization of Parmigiano Reggiano. And so what we're trying here, this is kind of our regular 24 plus month Parmigiano Reggiano. So this is kind of what we carry every day. It's a lovely cheese. It's super complex. It's got a really lovely, kind of sweetness, little pineapple, tropical notes to it, which I love about Parmigiano Reggiano. I love how like umami rich it is. You get like the really nice complexity in your mouth.
But it's mellow.
Right?
It's nutty. It's mellow. It's sweet, like she said.
Yeah.
Like
it's not going to overpower this wine. This wine's not going to fight the cheese.
Bite the cheese.
Fight the cheese. Fight the cheese, Michelle. It's 80 pounds.
So, I lugging 80 plus pound wheels of cheese is a lot of being strategic.
Amazing.
How I do it personally is I flip it up so it's on its side, so it kind of has that like angle, and then I can kind of get down under it like a forklift with my arms. And
who needs a gym when you've got wheel of cheeses?
It is absolutely phenomenal watching her do this live. For those of you who plan on coming to Parmageddon, you will see a spectacle. So not only that, why do we crack it, and why not just take a saw to Parmigiano Reggiano?
Why do we crack it?
Literally, it will change the composition of the flavor if you use any kind of like hot saw, like a fast-moving blade, anything like that. So literally, the traditional way, and the way that the consortio tells you to cut this cheese is to crack it. So there are tools.
You're telling me that it would, if I took a chainsaw to it, it would alter the.
If we had it side by side,
it messes with your texture. So
amazing. Okay.
So basically, what happens? So throughout this wheel, you might have noticed some kind of like crunchy, kind of salty crystals throughout.
Yeah, I got some of those. Yeah.
So that's called tyrosine. It's crystallized proteins, basically, and this happens while a cheese ages. It also happens, you'll notice it in prosciutto di Parma as well. You'll also get those kind of like hunks that are like kind of salty. It's not salt, it's protein. And so basically what happens, cracking the wheel is kind of the most respectful way to crack it, right?
Okay.
I use, when I'm doing a full wheel, I like to use the traditional tools. I actually got them from the consortium. I have a connection, and I was able to get some for free. But basically, they're specialized tools. I should have brought some in, but basically, when I crack a wheel, I like to say it's strategic scoring and stabbing. So I have a scorer that kind of has a little like nubbin on the edge of it that's surprisingly sharp.
Looks like a hook.
Okay, thank you. I was just going to ask, what does that look like? Okay.
Kind of has a hook of a shape.
Okay.
So this little nubbin hook, you score around the wheel. And what that does is it kind of creates a direction for when you're stabbing it, it follows that line. Rather than just stabbing it and it kind of creates a spider mark and goes in all different directions, it creates a direction for it to go.
So you have to be careful how you stab it.
Yeah, it's strategic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Strategic scoring and stabbing. Yeah. It's not just scoring and stabbing. So...
Fight the cheese.
Fight the cheese again.
So
that's our theme.
So once you score all the way around it, you're creating that direction for that crack to be. Then I will go in with spades. So they kind of look like daggers. They're like big, long, specialized.
It's a spade, man.
Nice.
It's exactly what you think it is.
Curved up to a point.
Okay.
Yeah. So my favorite ones are the ones that kind of look like daggers that are nice and long and sharp to a point. I also have some that are like a little bit more like kind of broad as well, like not quite as sharp, but they're more broad. Those are great for like flaking off of a wheel. I'm not as crazy about actually cracking with those, but basically with those, I start in the corners because that's kind of the thickest part of the rind because it kind of does like this and it gets a little thicker and it goes like this. So I go in the corners at a bit of an angle going in with two spades, and then that third one I use to kind of assume in the middle. So I have those two. I'll crack in the middle of that, and because it's scored, you get a little bit of direction on both sides with every stab.
Yeah.
So basically from there, you walk it around, and as the more you're doing it, the more it kind of opens up. Once you're all the way around, you can pop it open like a book. So it's kind of the most respectful way to crack a wheel. You get that tyrosine crystal action and like texture as much. Like if you go in with like a bandsaw, for example, that's going to melt all of that, and it's not going to have.
I didn't even think about that. Okay.
It's gonna mess with that texture.
How long is this process? Because
it's pretty fast.
You've got June 15th, 2 p.m. That's when you're cracking the wheel.
Yeah.
You can come to Carfagna's up Gemini and watch this live. But it's a pretty quick process.
It's pretty quick.
By 2:15, we're chipping samples out.
Yeah.
And when it's finally cracked,
and I take my time.
Oh, you do?
If I'm
Okay.
trying to go fast, I can crack a wheel in 30 seconds. But if
she's explaining the process while she's
but I'm
doing it.
explaining the
No,
process and
I-
taking my time while I'm doing it.
No, absolutely. Because
So
we wanted to understand the
I
process.
intentionally take more than 30 seconds.
When
if it's
it-
a race, I can go fast. But
So for those that are coming out for cracking the wheel, when
Parmageddon
it,
4.0 Parmesan cracking races.
there
me
you go.
versus Katie. It's
When
the battle of the parms.
Is there any, in the words of, and with respect to tradition with Carfagna's, is there anything you say after the wheel's been cracked? Is there a word or a phrase you say, or
I mean, not
or
really.
just
I mean,
yay?
Chin chin.
yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
What was that, Sal?
Chin chin, cent'anni.
Did you-
Yeah, 100 years. That's how the Italians say cheers. But I don't know. Auguri, right?
Okay, I was just curious.
I mean, I'm not Amber Lagasse. I don't go like bam or whatever, but like.
Well, look. I want to speed things up a little bit because
No, you're fine.
we're running out of time.
So we talked
talk
about
for years.
we talked
No,
about
you're fine,
exactly that cheese, right? Regular Parmigiano Reggiano. We talked about 24 month, what
Yeah.
it is. Now go to this Solo di Bruno, which is back here, right? We have 2 wheels of this. We've already broken down one. So you tasted that.
Yeah.
Look at the color difference already on this. Do you see that?
yeah.
Do you see how much golden, orangier?
This one,
Yes.
much more
So it's
golden.
over a full year older.
So so
So-
the moisture content's going to be less, but I
Okay.
see a lot more orange, right? And from our first wheel, I learned this. That means that there was more beta carotene in this cheese. Beta carotene is an enzyme that is prevalent in grass. It's the highest prevalent when it is in springtime and in higher elevations. So depending on where this cheese was made, the higher elevation there is, the higher beta carotene there is. That brings out that more like that nuttiness flavor type of
That's
thing.
amazing. So Sal, from what we learned from Michelle too, Are you telling me you can, because of the taste, you can almost
It's insane, right?
That is insane.
you can almost figure out where the cheese came from?
Are you tasting that? The difference?
I am.
That's the same cheese, right?
It's the
We
same
talk
cheese.
about terroir. This is like a blind taste test, right? Same
That's
cheese,
amazing.
made the same way. Like everything is governed. It has to be made the same exact way. The only difference is the location where the cows were grazing,
Breed.
the breed of the cattle,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's it.
And the age, but yeah.
Can I
the
ask you
age,
guys,
but yes.
is cheese regulated the same way in the U.S. as it is
Oh, God,
in
no.
Italy?
Oh god, no.
No.
Italy's way stricter.
Okay.
You know, our
So-
American singles, the government really, really cracks down on
Those craft cheese singles.
So, what's interesting about American-made cheese versus European cheese? Europe has a DOP program, so a designation of origin.
I'm sorry,
PDO.
this is blowing my mind right now.
Yeah, so PD.
This
It's
cheese
insane,
is,
right?
This cheese is
I told
crazy.
you.
So good.
I told you, it's a crazy wheel. It's way more savory than I think any wheel I've ever had.
Try some bread
Yes,
with it, if that's okay.
of course. Feel free to try the butter too. So.
Oh yeah. That's right.
To kind of go over what I have here
Sure.
on this plate. So I've got our 24 plus month Parmigiano Reggiano. I've got mortadella from Bologna, as Sal was saying. This was kind of towards the front of the like kind of loaf of it, so they're kind of smaller pieces. So I have enough for a couple slices per person. I also have some salami al tartufo that's made in Emilia Romagna. And then I also have kind of Parma's crown jewel, prosciutto di Parma, which is very similar to Parmigiano Reggiano in that it's like so simple yet so complex. Guy,
Michelle,
the butter's
this butter is
Oh, that butter,
amazing.
you guys. So this is butter from Parma, Italy. It is made with the cows, the cream that makes this cheese.
turns to that butter.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's
So-
it's my favorite butter that
It's a
that I have
crazy-
ever had.
crazy
now
butter.
my favorite.
Yeah, Delizia.
Wow.
It's called Delizia. That's the brand name of the butter.
And we can
have
get
it
that here at
We have
Carfagna's?
that at
Okay.
Carfagna's. Yes, we do.
I just got it in yesterday. So, and I got extra this year. I only bought 2 cases last year. I sold out immediately. I bought way more this year. So, what's cool about this butter? So, Parmigiano Reggiano is a skimmed milk product. And basically the reason why is that the extra cream that's in milk kind of messes with the texture and the flavor of this cheese at that age. Extra butter fat can mess with a really long aged cheese. So it's skimmed off per the PDO. So protected designation of origin. So that's cream that's skimmed off. This maker, Delicia in Parma, makes this butter. So it's a pretty cool life cycle trying that butter versus the Parmigiano Reggiano because it's from the same milk.
It's so smooth, Michelle.
Yeah.
So smooth.
It's insane. And so I'm kind of going off of tangents, but the American-made cheese doesn't have the protected designation of origin that Europe has. Europe has a very specific kind of standards for there are certain cheeses you can only make in certain areas. In the U.S., it's a lot more. I like to think of it as artists versus collectives. So in America, different makers will make similar different types of cheese, but they are different cheeses because they're made by different makers.
Right.
Whereas for Parmigiano Reggiano, there will be a couple hundred makers, but they're all Parmigiano Reggiano. They're unique to the maker, but they're all Parmigiano Reggiano, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Versus, let's say Jasper Hill Farm in Vermont makes a blue cheese called Bailey Hazen. It's a similar style to England's Stilton, but they are 2 very different cheeses. If that makes sense? Or that versus another maker in the U.S. trying those 2. They're different cheeses. And that also kind of plays into the terroir as well that we were talking about earlier. But also kind of has an enterprising kind of thing where each maker makes their own kind of portfolio of cheeses. And they're not, it's to the, there are some exceptions. Like there's some makers that make like 1 or 2 cheeses only.
Sure.
But most make a portfolio of a few different kinds, kind of depending on the season and
Do you,
all that.
Michelle or Sal, have you ever had any customer say, "I want to buy a wheel of cheese"? Like, would you ever?
I have.
So you've sold a wheel of cheese to a
sold wheels of cheese.
customer.
100%.
Oh yeah,
Is it common?
it
Is
happens every once in a while.
Maybe
I mean,
once
wow.
a year. Once a year.
once or
type
twice
thing.
a year. Usually around
What do you
Christmas.
think they use it for? They have
Well,
to know what they're doing, right?
We sold one to a chef who
Okay.
used it in a. He did a private dinner,
Oh, okay.
and he did like 10 courses for like
wow.
a group of people.
Yeah.
And every course featured the cheese in some shape or form.
Wow.
And what he did too was he did the cheese wheel pasta, which we're ready to go. I'm going to start doing
Oh
that.
Yeah.
Well, as we get into that, and of course you're listening to Uncorked. This is a monthly podcast with Carfagnas, and Sal Carfagna is the co-host. I'm Boxer. Michelle is this week's special guest who heads the deli and the cheese department. And Michelle, I gotta hand it to you. I have never met anyone that knows so much about cheese, but on top of it, there's so much that I didn't know about cheese until now.
You know-
thanks to you.
Yeah. I mean, what's cool about cheese, like cheese and wine are pretty similar, and I think what's fascinating is I'm intimidated by wine for the same reason most people are intimidated by cheese.
Are you
It's a
really
black hole.
intimidated by wine? Are
I'm
you?
less so since I've started working here, but
Okay.
like before then, yeah, like, so, and for both reasons, it's a black hole. The more you know, the more you don't know, you know, and, you know, my favorite thing about cheese is I'm learning something new every day. I've been doing this for 10 years.
That's
I am
amazing.
learning something new every day.
Michelle, before you got into this with cheese, and what were you doing before this?
So, I have an art background. I have an art degree from Ohio State. So that was kind of, I did some gallery work before then.
So you weren't like 7 years old going, "I want to work with cheese someday."
No.
Okay.
I mean, like my favorite cheese when I started working in cheese was like very mild deli provolone. Like basically for us version polio provolone. Like that was my favorite cheese. I didn't know anything about cheese. And you know, I the first counter I worked at was Katzinger's in German Village, and you know, I just it kind of was one of those things where there was
Sal is. It looks like he's combing the cheese right now. Are you combing? What do you call that? What you're doing?
That's comb or a scrape.
Oh, comb or scrape. Okay, giving it a nice haircut.
What I'm doing is I'm essentially kind of trying to give myself a bowl.
Oh, wow. And again, if you're listening to this on the iHeartRadio app and that version of the podcast, look, you can also go to and subscribe to Carfagna's YouTube channel, and you'll be able to get all the visuals of this because it's pretty amazing. Wow, look at that.
So this is essentially, Boxer, and I know I don't have my mic around me.
It's okay.
This is essentially Italian mac and cheese, right? So there are 3 ingredients to this dish: pasta, cheese, and black pepper. And it's called cacio e pepe, right? Cheese and pepper. And that's essentially what it is. The residual heat from the pasta will help melt this cheese. That residual pasta water from there will help create a creamy sauce to it. The black pepper brings out that spice and that pepperiness in the dish, and that is it.
Is absolutely amazing. And again, this is probably an episode visual-wise you're going to want to subscribe to the YouTube channel for Carfagna's because some of this stuff. First of all, I just have to say, Sal Carfagna, you're like the jack of all trades. You're like the Avengers of food. You know, I'm serious. Like, is there anything you don't know? Like, are your wings gonna pop out of your shirt or something? Like, seriously.
Like Michelle said, you learn something new every single day, and that's why we love doing what we do because this place allows us to do that, and we take that knowledge that we learned, and then we just pass it on. Otherwise, it dies. Yeah. Somebody has to keep it on. Somebody has to teach you how to do it. Otherwise, we're just going to be eating sprinkled cheese from Kraft, and we're going to call it sprinkled cheese, not even Parmesan, right? So there's a reason why we do what we do and why we love it.
Well, while Sal is doing that, Michelle, would you be able to talk about what's coming up with Parmageddon?
Yeah.
And I know it's June 14th through the 16th. Again, the Cracking the Wheel is going to happen on June 15th at 2 p.m. But what kind of things are you going to see for Parmageddon?
Yeah, so we turned the whole store Parmigiano Reggiano themed, and that was kind of the idea, is like, how can we turn the entire store that has different specialties and rally around this one cheese, right? Parmigiano Reggiano is often regarded as the king of cheese. It is kind of the OG. It is one of the
That's a great way to put it.
So there's different ways that we kind of incorporate Parmigiano Reggiano through the entire store. So so what's new for this year, what Sal is doing is we're actually kind of doing it in two ways this year. In the past, what we've always done, Vinny, who's our pasta man, he has always done it in the cafe. And it would be a la carte, kind of a smaller portion, but it's just a really nice, like, kind of quick, easy meal.
Okay.
And a great way to experience Parmigiano Reggiano. We're still doing that this year. We're also doing, we're bringing in the restaurant by also doing this, but a little bit more of an upscale experience. So it'll be kind of like Benihana, like where they'll come to the table with that wheel and get to show you that whole process in front of you. We're kind of working out the training this week on that, but it's that is something that is new. I'm sorry, Michelle. Can I just, speaking of cheese, can I just tell you one of my favorite things? Yeah.
Probably all year round that you do, that you guys give samples out, is the mozzarella.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. I'm the guy that's standing in line and then I get back in line for more.
Yeah. You can't beat it right out of the bowl. It's delicious.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. Also delicious. So other things that we have going on during Parmageddon. So, cacio e pepe is a big one. The bar is doing a special cocktail for this event.
Okay.
Amanda made a really cool kind of like tomato-based cocktail that kind of, it doesn't taste like marinara. It tastes kind of like walking through the garden during the summer. It's like a really nice, light, refreshing kind of flavor. It's beautiful. It's really cool with Parmigiano Reggiano. In the cafe, one thing that we've also done since day one, we're doing again, is Parmigiano Reggiano gelato. So Bella, who is Sal's sister, makes all the gelato here. And so what I will do is from this wheel, all the extras, some of this 24-month Parmigiano Reggiano will be in this, is going to be grated up and turned into gelato. And it becomes this really cool, it's not super savory. It really brings out, you might have noticed a little bit of like a tropical note in the Parmigiano Reggiano a little bit.
Right.
But it really brings that out a lot. It's got this really cool flavor, and then we top it with some top shelf olive oil and some flaky salt. Lovely. It's beautiful. In the piazza, which is kind of the epicenter, I've got, I call it the cheese altar. I've got a big table of all of our Parmigiano Reggianos, all of our pecorino romano, because a lot of people don't know the difference. Trying those side by side, cow's milk versus sheep's milk, and Reggio Emilia versus Lazio. So we get to try those all together, and you get to try those all down the line. Pick your favorites. We will also I'll have kind of a big table, and the idea is kind of like bread and butter, olive oil, balsamic charcuterie. So I'll have kind of like how we're doing here, but on a larger scale.
Oh, okay.
I'll have charcuterie from the same areas. I'll have balsamics. I'll have olive oils. I'll have this Reggiano butter and bread that people can try all of these things together. And then we will also have one thing that's new this year as well, because it's something that like people have asked about in the past. It's something I've always wanted to do, is have a merch table, just like a punk rock show. Have a
Agreed,
merch table.
yeah.
We got some shirts made. They're black and gray tie-dye that say Parmageddon and Carfagna's. They're super cool. We also just got the stickers in. They just came in yesterday. And we did some Parmageddon, related visual memorabilia with those.
Michelle, is there admission for Parmageddon? Is it just...
No, it's a free event.
Okay,
So,
free event. Okay.
So it's a free event. It's free to come. And there's a lot of elements that are free. I've got all my samples and stuff, and there's certain things that you can pay for. Like the gelato, the cacio pepe. But for the most part, the idea is this is a free event. This is something that is an educational event. It's something that we can
Definitely.
kind of harp on that. Parmigiano Reggiano is so much more than just like dust for your pasta, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Even just trying these on their own, like they are spectacular on their own. I actually I bought some of this brown cow yesterday. My partner and I are really into tinned fish. And what we were pairing yesterday was this brown cow Parmigiano Reggiano with some potato chips, and then there's this brand called ABC out of Portugal. They make a really cool trout in curry sauce, and the kind of coconut backing of that curry sauce was absolutely crazy with this Parmigiano Reggiano.
Wow.
And so we're kind of doing a what goes together pairing. But what's cool about Parmigiano Reggiano is there's a lot of ways you can go pairing wise, and it's very versatile. You can go so many directions with it, and it's delicious, and you can really play on, it's kind of tropical notes. You can really play on its umami.
Yeah.
One thing that's really cool with it too is nori is really cool Parmigiano Reggiano. There's a lot of different things that it can go with that are really cool. But yeah, that was a pretty crazy pairing I tried last night. That was really delicious. And then Raj hooked me up with I don't remember the name of it, but it was this really cool white wine that was kind of briny on the back of it. It was really cool. Had oysters on the label, but that was a really cool kind of pairing.
Michelle, question about cheese as we start to wrap up, and I know Sal, the noodles, the pasta. Wow. I see exactly what you were talking about. This is amazing. When it comes to cheese at Carfagna's, one of our previous episodes, actually it was the first one I think, and we talked about the wine shop and how Carfagna's is one of the few places where you can get wines from all over the world. Is it the same with cheese? Can you get cheese from all over the world?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And outside of here, I'm kind of known as the Columbus curd nerd. That's my Instagram name. So
I'm gonna follow you.
Yeah.
Let me get my phone out.
Columbus curd nerd.
I'm gonna find you right now, Michelle.
And I started that alias while I was starting to study for the Certified Cheese Professional exam. This is kind of my way to share what I've been learning as I was doing this. And so I like to carry things that are hard to find in Columbus and carry things that,
thank you.
Yes, we will have our staples. There are things I will always carry, but I always cycle my stuff out all the time and carry things that are really cool and interesting and, kind of seasonal. Right now, one thing I just got in yesterday, speaking of seasonal, I got some, it's not Italian, it's from the Netherlands. It's called spring milk Gouda or Grosskaas. It's, as Sal was saying, kind of like the best milk of the year is in spring. So the grass is growing. The cows are kind of after a long summer or long winter of eating hay, finally getting to taste that fresh grass. And they're making the best milk of the year. This Grosskaas kind of highlights on that, where it's only using milk from that time of year. And it only comes out once a year. It only comes out around this time of year.
Oh, okay.
And so it's a really nice, young, buttery, beautiful Gouda. and it's lovely. I just got that in yesterday as well. So,
Oh, snap. Oh, Sal.
beautiful
Oh, my.
twirl.
This is
Yeah.
something. You're talking about cheese and milk. So when it comes to Italy, is there? Well, does most of Italy have like a winter too? Then I'm assuming. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, all the way down. Southern Italy is like equivalent to like our. Southern Italy would be like equivalent to like our Florida, right? To where like down in Calabria, Puglia, like their winters are much more milder. But up north, like where Turin is at, those are the Alps, and they get snow year round. And the higher elevation, there's a lot of elevation all throughout Italy. They will get dumped on with snow. So the closer that you are to sea level, the winters are much more milder. Rome has a mild winter because it is pretty low as far as sea level goes. But yeah, they get all 4 seasons there.
Wow. That explains it then. Okay.
Yeah. So geographically, Parmigiano Reggiano is kind of more northern Italy. So
Okay.
they really get all 4 seasons. They are up in the Alps. So what's really interesting about the brown cow in particular is that, so I was kind of saying before, there's kind of like 3 original breeds that come to Parmigiano Reggiano. There's the brown cow, the Bruno Alpina cow. There's the red cow. It's called Razza Reggiana. And the rarest of the 3 is called Modenese white cow. It's the Bianca Modenese. So of those 3, so the brown cow is kind of an interesting one where, so Switzerland is right next to Italy, right? And so during the Roman Empire, Switzerland was part of the Roman Empire.
Thank you, Sal.
And
My God. This is amazing. Sorry, Michelle.
you're good. You're good.
I can't believe Italian mac and cheese. I don't ever want to have Kraft mac and cheese again. It's disgusting compared to this. Wow. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. And all of these things, it's like so simple yet so complex, right? So,
Feed the man. Feed the boxer. He's hungry.
This is amazing. Sorry, I've been up since 2.
no, you're good. So, Switzerland is next to Italy. Used to be part of the Roman Empire. Switzerland makes this cheese called Sprinz. It's a long-aged cheese up in the Alps, and it was made by this breed, where Italians would use it, grate it. They're pretty similar. It's kind of considered Parmigiano Reggiano's ancestor. So as the Roman Empire fell, Switzerland's like, we're keeping the Sprinz, figure it out. And Italy's like, we love the Sprinz, we got to make our own version. So Parmigiano Reggiano actually stems from that. They use this original breed.
Don't say that around the Italians.
No.
So they use this original breed, the Bruno Alpino, which, when you think of breeds of cows, they don't really care about like geographical borders, right? They live in this area, which is the Alps. Italy is part of the Alps. And
by the way, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
When I think of the Alps, I think Switzerland.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So Italy is part of that. Austria is part of it. Germany has parts of it as well.
Okay.
So what's really interesting about the Alpine region is like there's a lot of kind of diversity in that region. Parmigiano Reggiano kind of has similar roots in its making as well with Alpine cheeses. So it's only made in copper vats. It's not made with like stainless steel or anything. Copper is an ancient metal that it retains heat really well, and it creates a better cheese. Like there's been studies of like the same cheese, same process, made in a stainless steel vat versus a copper vat, and the copper one had so much more flavor. And the make process is pretty similar. Like the curd is heated to a certain temperature. The biggest difference is for this, especially, the curds are cut into like rice-sized particles called grana or grains. When you think grana padano, grain, the grana means grain, so which calls back to the size of the curd. So smaller curd means less whey, so like more whey is expelled, which results in a harder cheese and better suited to age for a long time. Because if you have something that's kind of a higher moisture, it can start to ferment and get weird.
Oh, okay.
Over time. So there's a lot of really interesting similarities between the two because they're neighbors. And when you try them side by side, they're different. They're different cheeses because, again, with the terroir, they're different. They're similar, but they're different regions. They're similar styles of make, but they're different shapes. They're different, all of that. So they ultimately are different cheeses. But yeah. So the Bruna Alpina is a really cool breed. It's heralded for, it makes a really high quality milk.
Yeah.
During the Industrial Revolution, makers would kind of opt for larger breeds. When you think of cow, you think of Holsteins, which are kind of like the iconic like black and white cow, right? They make a lot of milk. A lot of that milk is water. So it's these smaller breeds, like these original three, they're smaller breeds, so they make less milk, but they make higher quality milk. So with this guy, it's got higher protein. It's got, in particular, higher protein in the milk than a Holstein does. And so you get those tyrosine crystals that are crystallized.
It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Michelle, we could do 2 episodes, and Michelle and Sal, I'm getting.
I can talk for days about Parmigiano Reggiano.
I just had no idea. I had no idea how much information, how much knowledge there was to know about cheese and Parmesan.
Taste and learn. And especially with Parmageddon, our, as I like to call it, our Parmesan education extravaganza. Everything Parmesan cheese. It is a beautiful event. Come down, obviously, the cheese altar. You'll taste every single type of Parmesan from all over the world. You will taste not only the cow's milk Parmesan, but the sheep's milk Pecorino Romano. You will be able to taste Parmesan gelato. If you want to dine in the restaurant for the cheese wheel pasta, that's going to be available. If you want a quick little bowl and keep on moving around, it's going to be available in the cafe for lunch. You guys, it's going to be a lot of fun. Live music is going to be happening. We're going to have live pesto demos. There's going to be a lot of fun stuff on Parmageddon. It is all weekend long, but Saturday, June 15th, is the day. That is the day that we crack the whole wheel of Parmigiano Reggiano. That is at 2 p.m. So put it in your calendars. Mark it down, 2 p.m., June 15th. And see Parmageddon live, man.
It is a must-see. Parmageddon, June 14th through the 16th. Yes, what Sal was just saying, June 15th, Cracking the Wheel, that's coming up at 2 o'clock. Of course, you can find out everything at carfagnas.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, and maybe that's where you're already listening to on the iHeartRadio app. That's great. But also, you can subscribe visually to the YouTube channel for Carfagnas as well. Well, I guess we have covered everything. Thank you, Michelle, for being our guest this week. Sal, as always, you're amazing. And Sal always closes everything out every month by saying,
Mangia bene.